Okay. Well, this is going to be a discussion about what I've been doing for the past 1 year, or like 1 or 2 years on the Armwrestling scene. So, maybe like 4 or 5 episodes split in the different subjects of what I've been doing. So the first episode is going to be the start of Armwrestling. So in this episode, I'll be discussing a short note of what are the things going for the past 3 years to be exact. So the 4th December 2022, I just attended a deadlift PR of 200 kg. It didn't go well. I had an injury on the back, like on the oblique area. I don't think what kind of injury it is, but it's not that serious. But it took me off the deadlift scene for like the next for like 1 year, I think. So after that injury, I just transitioned my powerlifting training to power building training. I've been doing some different training, like hand dipping, like as Hercules, or something related to the strongman training methods. So while I was doing the training, I just followed the sport of arm wrestling. At that time, I didn't follow like I was aware of arm wrestling, but even though I was doing weight training, so I thought about doing some arm wrestling specific workouts, not the actual training practice. So I thought it's better to build a base than going to a arm wrestling, team or class. So I thought about doing some arm wrestling workouts. Like first I bought a judo belt, then just the basics actually. On the judo belt, literally doing like a workout rising, then the basic stuff like easy bar curls, barbell curls, isolation, then the forearm curls. So consistently, but occasionally I've been doing these workouts. And it's just going like for I think after the injury till the December I've been doing this the arm wrestling workouts, not the actual training practice. So I think it is on the 10th or 17th December 2023, I have joined the arm wrestling academy in that area. On that day, the first person I have really put the hands in the arm wrestling table was the coach. So after that, I've been getting into the actually playing with the young players. So in that day, I have realized that all my arm wrestling workout has nothing to do with the actual table practice. So that is the first thing I have realized, that never do workouts before getting into actual arm wrestling. So if you guys are planning to do arm wrestling or planning to start arm wrestling, I would what do you say? I would strongly suggest that never do arm wrestling workouts or never look into arm wrestling workouts before getting into actual arm wrestling training. So it's better if you find a arm wrestling club or routine nearby your area, go practice with them. And after some months, look into what arm wrestling workouts. Do the basics like pull-ups, barbell curls. Then do the specific movements that you are capable of, like according to your styles and techniques. So 2 weeks later, after joining the academy, I had to participate in the upcoming district arm wrestling competition. I thought about just experience the competition. In my first district arm wrestling competition, I have been placed in a senior category. I don't remember the category, but even though I weigh more than 100, so my opponent is literally very experienced guy. You might have seen him on the story highlights. I have mentioned those matches in that highlights. So it was a great experience on getting into that stage and having the whole audience looking on the match. So I didn't have any stage fear about that because I know I'm not going to win, but still it was a great experience, and he literally won over me on left hand right. Okay, after 3 sessions, I think after 3 academic sessions, I have gone to the state arm wrestling competition. So it is an amazing experience. Even though I have no chance of winning or nothing like that. So it is an amazing experience how big the competition is, how many players there are. Even though most of the champions in that in India are from Kerala, I think. In each category there is a champion. So it was an amazing experience to realize that how big this sport is in Kerala, how experienced the players in Kerala are. So there is no chance of me winning something, even though the chance of winning are. So my opponents were like, one is America, as we know from Kerala. The second opponent is, I think, Jerry. So that is the first match. I think I had something to win. So then after the loose weight, we go into the strap for the first time. So in that strap, he literally did a side pressure actually. Like I don't know, I can remember. I think there is a video on my story. So he did the absolute side pressure. That is the first time I'm realizing what side pressure is. I didn't know what side pressure. I don't think that has this much role in this sport. So it was a great experience. I think, as usual, I was not expecting to win something. I'm just therefore to gain experience and to environment of like the series, Amazon scene in the whole state. So okay, from in that day, I've met Rochen for the first time. So I know him, through the Instagram videos and all the hype of that huge forums is, immediately. That's the first time I'm meeting him. So yeah, I don't think I can't remember anything more about that. So after the state, as usual, doing some the weekly sessions in academies. And I think after 1 or 2 months, Rochen joined biology in the fifth factor. So yeah, he came there to only do the armwrestling workouts. He don't do any other workouts. So we have been training. Yeah, I've been occasionally training with him. Occasionally do some armwrestling workouts and then what. So that's not able like till the half of the year, I think. So we have been doing the armwrestling workouts. He introduced me to the new players, the existing armwrestling sessions other than the academy. Yeah, he just invited other players like Tejas and other team to our gym for armwrestling. At that time, there was no table in the gym. After some, I think 3 or 4 months, we introduced the armwrestling to our gym and we, discussed about bringing a table. So after some days, the gym got a table for us to, practice the armwrestling. So we introduced, armwrestling to our gym. And I think two more guys, joined with us and trained consistently. And we've been conducting many, practice sessions at the Fit Factor. Many players coming from other states, other districts, and we have been doing small practice sessions at the Fit Factor. I think after that. So after some month, I think April or June, yeah, I started taking PRT, testosterone replacement therapy. So there's a long story behind that. So for me choosing the injectable testosterone, I've been struggling with the naturally because there's a lot of backstory between. I have been doing the blood test. My testosterone level was at 420 at that time. When I was in peak 90 phase, I've been doing the clean diet, very good training, protocols and stacking. Okay. After continuing the PRT, I've made with my first injury in the arm wrestling. It was on the brachioradialis injury. The cause of injury is still I don't know the cause of injury because it was not from the heavy lifting or something. It was from the regular table practice. But that injury, I can't really diagnose that injury because when I go to the doctor, they come to the conclusions that it was a bicep tendon tear or a minor tear of strain. So I'm given rest to the right after that injury. It was like a mild pain, nothing severe or like I can't feel, I can't understand. I don't think it was it was something related to tendon. It was something mild, no swelling or nothing. So after that, I gave some rest like 1 or 2 months I think, on the right arm, and I have focused more on the left arm. I'm naturally better at my left arm for better skill than my right for arm wrestling. So I've been focusing more on the left side of the left arm to train more of arm wrestling. So after the injury phase, I've been training with Rochen and other regular academy sessions with my more focused on my left arm other than on my right. So I thought not engaging more on my right might give a relief or might heal the injury. I can get ready before the district competition that is on like 24 December. So I've been training regularly with Rochen. He's been preparing for the district competition as well as state and national. So he's on his prime level at that time. I know how strong he is. I think he's the strongest he has ever been. I think because in order to he's insanely strong at his level. So there is no question about it. Even though he doesn't train, he can be easily to the nationals. I think. So when I was training with him on the right hand, I have to train with both of my arms supporting my leg because also I have an injury, but still in order to show him, I have to hold it like this. And at the end of the November, I think I have to do like this to hold his foundation. So he was that strong, and I believe that he deserved to win the district COC because only I know that how strong he was. And maybe I think because of the lack in preparations, I think he lost that competition. So even though I don't have any chance of doing anything at the district competition, so my whole focus was, my whole expectation was on him because he was that strong. He was in his best form to win everything he can. So yeah, my injury has been like that. I can't do anything. So that district competition has arrived. So I have no expectation on myself winning against America because he's not at his best form, but yeah, he can win that over me because because of his experience, I would say. even though he's not at his best. So I didn't have any expectation on my right, but still my left was a bit, better than my right. So even though, my opponent is very skilled on left, his main arm, his main combination on left. So there is no chance in both of the, categories. So I know that for a fact, but my expectation was more on coach winning the COC. So my matches were like on the right hand first, first round with my opponent. It was like I know he's going to top on me, but when the referee say ready and he is going to to do the referee grip, so I just got a good hold on his formation, and then the referee started ready go. I just got him into a hook. So when I was going to do that pressure or rally, he just literally did his very best to beat me. So there was no chances of me getting out of that surge from my opponent. Then the next round was very close to winning. I just I still don't know what was my performance in that the beginning of the round. I think I was going for the opponent's ready go. I just did my shoulder roll and go to floor plus plus. Unfortunately, at the end of the bat, he just slipped up with his formation, so I didn't hold for a win. So on the next round, he know what I'm going to do, and he just applied what exactly that it needs to be done. What exactly it needs to be done. So he, with his experience, I think he did a high hook or something. Yeah. Though the right category was over, then the next match is on the left arm. So I know there's no chance of me winning the left category with him. So I tried to go against him that he executed very well by pinning back to center and give a good surge on me. And the next round he did the best technical go on me against my technique. So my matches were about as expected, and I've been expecting more on the Rochen's COC rounds. So unfortunately, I don't know what happened. He said the whipping was not correct or something. He also literally lost. Then my whole expectation was on my coach, and he literally won it without any efforts, I think. After the district competition, I was planning to make a video about me losing. I get 4 videos of mine losing every time on practice as well as competition. So I know I have an injury, though I can't do nothing with that injury. Even though my opponents are like in the scene for 5 or 6 years. So when I was doing that, when I was editing that video, I thought instead of holding myself, that would be an obligation by doing it by myself. So something triggered me to change the course of that video, like what I would say, like a comeback or like a give a shot on that next COC. That is such an unreal goal, I would say. Even though while I was making that video, I think something triggered me actually. It was like I should stop humiliating myself. That I know even though I can't do anything with that injury, that is still a valid excuse. But still, I can't do I can't humiliate. It is not okay to humiliate myself. So I thought about making a comeback, even though I haven't achieved anything. But even though I was only in the scene for like 1 year, so there is no need for such a comeback. But if I could put myself into such a position that where I must achieve something in the next year, then that goal would make me train insanely hard for the next competition. So there is more making that video, but as far as I remember, my competitiveness was the answer by changing that to a comeback video or a mission of me winning the next time. So, had the lucid streak for a good 1 year. So I can't still figure out what triggered me to do that video, but still, I just did it instead of humiliating me. So you cannot see that in my profile. So after the December this video happened, then Rochen go to the state competition. I did it because of my injury. It is not possible it is not possible to participate in that competition with my injury. So after that, in February, or May or April, I think I had maybe that small bike accident where I have injured my right knee. And later on, I have read an MRI and figured out what kind of injury it is. So the injury was meniscus tear in inner and outer. There is complex tear in inner and a minor tear in outer. So from that point onward, I can't do any powerlifting training. So literally, no way I can do any leg training because it was a bit serious injury. Because if I give more stress into that area, I might get an surgery, a meniscus surgery. Then only I can get back into training. So from that point onward, I know I have to do powerlifting or specifically anything that involves leg training. So I think that was a sacrifice, like in Avengers, like Thanos sacrificing his product. So I I took this injury as in that sense. So in order to gain something, you have to sacrifice what you love the most. Even though that wasn't, even though that was not that deep, but still, I think that's a sacrifice and I have to, be aware of the consequences. And I was not sad for that because I was more focused on the other things. Yeah, after that, in July, I think the conflict with me and Rochen has started. There is a small story behind that, how we come into such conflict. The whole conflict was based on some misunderstandings, misconceptions, I would say. I was falsely accused of something that I didn't say, or like I can't say it was my mistake. There was one or two guys in between this conflict, so they made that mistake, and there is a reason that they made a mistake. So I can't get more than that conflict that made Watch actually Watch start hating me for something for that conflict. I can't go deep into that. So in that conflict time, in that time, Watson starts to say shit about me. Like Watson starts to all of sorts of match. Like he said that I'm never going to beat you. So
അതാ പറഞ്ഞത്, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എന്നെ പറ്റി ക്രിട്ടിസൈസ് എനിക്ക് കുഴപ്പമൊന്നുമില്ല. പക്ഷേ നീ ആരുടെ എന്താ സംസാരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു ഇത് വേണം കേട്ടാ. നീ അത്രയും പറയായിട്ടില്ല, അത്രയും പറയാതാകുമ്പോൾ ഞാൻ പറയാം. ഞാൻ മനസ്സിലാക്കിയിട്ട് നിങ്ങൾ ആരും മനസ്സിലാക്കിയിട്ടില്ല. എൻ്റെ ലൈഫിനെ അറിയത്തില്ല. 2021 സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്ത ഞാൻ 2021 പ്രൊഫഷണലി. 2025 എനിക്ക് 3 സ്റ്റേറ്റ് മെഡൽസ് ഉണ്ട്, 3 ഗോൾഡ് മെഡൽസ്. ഓക്കെ, നീ കേക്ക്. ഒരു നാഷണൽ മെഡൽ ഉണ്ട്. ഓക്കെ, മറ്റേ നാഷണൽ മെഡൽ കിട്ടാൻ ഞാൻ ഷിപ്പിൽ പോയിട്ട് മാത്രം. അതിനിടയ്ക്ക് ഞാൻ ജോലി. You can try how hard you want, but you can't beat me.
That triggered my I can't say that ego. Because deep inside me, I know that I'm never going to be that guy. I never want to do the super match with him. So, literally he, pulled out in my face, thought that I'm literally weak. There's no chance in this life that I'm going to beat him. Like you can try how hard you want, and you're never going to beat me. I should think that I would. I should think that on my t-shirt. Even before that, there was 2 guys that I believe that I can't never beat them because of how they've given that impact on my mind. Like the first one is my coach, because once we do the time in the academic practices, he told me to get into the competition setup, and he also moved into the competition setup, and he literally give an insane hit on my right hand. So after that hit, my mind totally decided that I can't never beat this guy. It was like a mental barrier. If I can train like for 5 or 6 years consistently, maybe I can beat him. But at that time, mentally, I was literally I don't know what the emotion behind that, or the psychology or psychiatry behind that. Yeah. After that explosion is Rochen, because I know how strong he is, how unique he is. So even though I have to, when I was training, I have to give both of my arms to hold him. That's how strong he was. So yeah, these 2 guys, something in my mind says I can't beat this guy. Don't go to super match. It's not even worth it, even though they are half of my weight. It recorded in my mind that it is impossible to beat these 2 guys. Even though I have seen many other stronger guys, I didn't have such a feeling like it is impossible to beat that guy and that guy. So yeah, one of them was Rochen. So even though when he is pulling out to do a super match, I can't beat him, but still I can't back off that. I can't back off from that challenge. So it was his choice that I have to do a super match. Then he start saying that I'm literally weak, like to everybody he beat. So that didn't trigger me anything. It didn't trigger my ego. I'm not being egoistic because I know what I am. I know what my weaknesses are. I'm literally optimistic about my condition at that time. Even though my experience, even though he say he's the best, he can literally beat me. I just literally agree to his opinion because he's into this armwrestling scene for like more than 6 years, I would say. So I have just completed my 1 year this armwrestling journey. So there is no way I'm going to beat Rochen at that time. Even though I agreed to a super match, I know the 2 options that practically. So the 2 options that I can practically over him is he needs to get weak. So I have to heal my injury first. Then within 1 year minimum, I would max out my back pressure strength. At that time, my cupping strength was a little bit more than Rochen's, and also my side pressure was in par with Rochen's side pressure. It was like pretty similar at that time. So the only weakling in my body is the back pressure. That break injury was never healed. Okay, so after I would say 1 or 2 months, I just went for the MRI. Like when I was doing the knee MRI, I took the MRI of my arms on the elbow. It was literally hard for me to fit into that MRI machine because their MRI was like this width, this width. So if I can't get into that MRI, but they can't, get the scan of my elbow area. So I just approached many MRI scans. And on MRI scans, agreed to do the MRI. Why, I have to get into the Superman position in that bed for like 1 or 2 hours. So that was the most painful, scan I've ever done because, yeah, the way I have my MRI is like, you know, laying on the bed like a Superman. I have to, hold everything together and I can't do an inch. So it took 1 hour, then again 1 hour. So totally 2 hours I have to lay down like that without, making any, the movements. So it was insanely painful. So after the MRI comes out, the, in that MRI report, it is not showing any complications on the brachioradialis side. Started the peptides. I think it is after the challenge, and it is after like 2 months. In between, somewhere I can't remember right now. I've been doing the BTC on 57 peptide for like 5 wires. I have completed before doing the PRP. I have completed the 5 wires. So I think that have fixed my brachioradialis injury. But at that time, I had a side ulnar. Can't remember. I think I have posted that on my story highlights. Yeah. This ligament over here. I had a small tear in that. So from that point, I can't do the side pressure, training for like 1.5 months. So there has been consistently, the injury has been very consistent over those, months. I think it is before the MRI, after the MRI, I have, done PRP treatment on my right knee and right elbow. So I think, I think it is before the MRI. Yeah. I have, hunted to, the density. And another, my health insurance, I got the opportunity to do both PRP injections, at free of cost. But I have to, get admitted to like 2 days, I think. Yeah. So I had done the PRP injections on my right elbow side and right knee. So after that, the PRP actually helped me to heal some of the, pain. I can't say pain, but it had done some good impact on my knee as well as on my, brachioradialis injury. So I think after that I've done the, BBC peptides. So I think I'm not sure what healed my, the brachioradialis injury, but I think both has played a good role in healing that. So yeah, I think I have done everything available to, even though clinically and even in research, side, I have done, many things to heal my injury because also I have spent a lot of money to, to heal, even though when I was, buying the peptides, I will explain that in, other episodes on the anabolic episode. So when I was buying the peptide, there was like 2 or 3 peptides solely for, healing the injuries and healing the tendons. So I think I have spent like, I can't, calculate the amounts, but I have spent very good to fix this, stubborn, chronic brachioradialis injury. So this injury has been with me for like more than 1.5 years ago, in between 1.5 years. So this episode is going to be all about Rochen, my POV, my thoughts, everything I know about Rochen, what I felt about Rochen in the past, as long as I know him. So in a nutshell, I would describe him as immature, childish, funny, strong, but dumb guy, a potential in Malayalam people say. So he is literally that. So, there are many instances that he proves that he's such a guy. I think most of you guys have met him. And I think we share, the same opinion on what he really is. So, if I could give an example, his character would be like, in the movie, in Ghostbusters, right? We all know the movie. So in that movie, we know the character, Akukutan, right? So he's like a mini version of Akukutan in real life, 24/7. So I think, yeah, because of that, I think it is impossible to hate him. I don't think nobody hate him because, I had a very good reason to hate him for a long time. But, after like 2 months, we just go back together. It is literally impossible to hate him. So if we look at his Armwrestling journey, I think, he really makes some bad decisions. So even though, no question to give Armwrestling advice to him, but even though if you look at his, decisions he makes in Armwrestling, like, if I could give an example, the way he prepares for the competition, or, the way he chooses the workout, or, his technical aspects, Armwrestling tables, with his opponent, the way he reads his opponent is literally bullshit, I would say. It is literally bullshit. So one time he will come up with a strategy of a plan. Then after like 2 or 3 weeks, he will come back to me and say that it is bullshit and this is better. So I don't think it is improvisation, but he does this every time. Even though when I give an advice to him, he won't listen to that. Like, after like 1 or 2 months, he will come back to me and say that, yeah, now I realize that the thing I said was right. This is what really he is. So I hope everyone can relate to this about his character. Okay, so let's debunk his forearms theory. So this is my theory on how he do his big forearms. So most of you guys ask me that he looks steroids, so is he taking any steroids? So my answer is that he's not mature enough to take steroids. I don't think if he took steroids, then so he'll be dead by him. So I don't think he can, take steroids on his own, or he can experiment such moves on his own. So my theory is that, so following my theory on how he goes with forums. So we all know that he's a marine engineer, right? So when he get his contract, so he'll be out in the sea for like 7 to 8 months, so like maybe more than 1 year. So if we, look at the environment he is, so he does some manual works, as per his way, and does his armwrestling workouts at the gym in his sleep. Then he get high quality nutritious food in his ship. And most importantly, if we look at the oxygen exposure he is getting 24/7. So in the sea we know that the oxygen percentage is very high compared to in the land. So he's living in an environment which favors the best for arm wrestlers, because he has the availability of high nutritious quality foods. He can meet his protein requirement daily without any hustles or without any other expenses. And he does his arm wrestling work very consistently, as he said, and he does some manual works which requires his arms. And the most important thing is that the ecosystem, which means the oxygen exposure he is getting. When I had my injury, I've been researching more. I've been researching a lot on therapies. Right? So I found out that there is a therapy called HDOT therapy. So basically, that therapy means that you will be, if a patient who has any wounds or any injuries or any some kind of illness, then you will be put into a chamber, a closed chamber, and they will close that chamber and then release pure oxygen, some kind of oxygen that has some high percentage of oxygen in that oxygen. And that, they will release that oxygen, and when we inhale that oxygen will go to that wound area, or that places that have injuries, or that place has some illness. So it will literally heal those wounds and injuries. So that is so basically that's what HPOT therapy is. I think in military they have that therapy, that's set up for that therapy. So what I'm trying to say is that he's literally mimicking the HPOT therapy effects while he's on the ship, because pretty similar to HPOT, but not that effective. But still, when you get such exposure 24/7, your body will be used to it. Even though I personally experience the effects while being on the sea for like a week, your immunity will get very high. There are a lot of other benefits from such an environment. So this is my theory on how he got his big forearms. In that environment, you will repeatedly damage your arms and muscles, tendons, and then you will have access to such a nutritional quality foods, and the ecosystem he is in, forcing his injuries or micro traumas to heal faster and stronger. So this is my theory on how he got his big forearms. Also, genetic is a good factor, but still, if I look at his forearms, size. So when I measure, his forearms with my tape, so it is around like 14.5 to maximum 15. So I don't think that is a comparatively huge forearms. Even they have more than 15 inches. So according to his appearance, he have a boxy frame, and his height is a little bit short than mine. So because of that, short wide frame, so his forearms looks bulkier, but in fact it is genetically okay to have such forearms. So this is my theory on how he got his big forearms. This is how he developed such a good strength in arm wrestling. Not because of his technique or his skill or talent. Literally because of such scenarios he's exposed to. I think this is how he got better at arm wrestling. When you reach such strength levels, you will be demanded to improve in the table side of the competition. So that's another reason how he got better at arm wrestling, technically or through skill and talent.